The body of your essay, the section between the introductory and concluding paragraphs, is the core of your essay. It is what the introduction introduces and what the conclusion concludes. It is the reason why you are writing your essay in the first place. The stakes are particularly high as you begin to compose the body of your essay. An essay that has an ineffective introduction or conclusion can still be readable and worthwhile, but when the body of the essay fails to come together, the whole writing project is imperiled. For this reason, it is worthwhile to think about strategies for approaching the body of your essay in a way that allows you to write with confidence. Just like an architect laying out the foundations of a building, the first step is to take some general measurements and visualize a sense of what the proportions of the finished project will be even before you know exactly what it looks like. For the purpose of the research paper assignment, for example, the terrain is 5 pages of blank paper, as we discussed a few lectures ago. We know that the first half page or so will be the introduction, and the last half page or so will be the conclusion, which leaves us with 4 pages for the body of the essay. Anything that I'm going to build into this space needs to be able to fit within these basic parameters. At first, this expanse of 4 pages looks like a complete wasteland, devoid of any landmarks or reference points. But the next step in the planning process is to begin to imagine how that space will become populated with information and ideas. In typical academic writing, paragraphs tend to be slightly longer than half a page, 250 to 300 words or so, give or take. This means that your 4 blank pages translate into somewhere between 6 and 8 paragraphs, which will be responsible for communicating every significant point you intend to make about your topic. If you can put names to these paragraphs, you have a preliminary map for your essay, what writers call an outline. The outline is basically a list of paragraph topics. Here's an essay about cheese, sample thesis. Although all cheeses are made with similar ingredients and procedures, the world of cheese is characterized by diversity and variation. So here are 6 body paragraphs: a paragraph about brie, a paragraph about cheddar, camembert, cassou marzu, Swiss, Parmesan, and that's my essay. This is a good start for a rough outline, but once we list all the cheeses I want to write about, I can start thinking about the order of these bullet points. An essay that just moves around randomly from cheese to cheese will probably come across as disjointed and haphazard. This stage of the outlining process provides me with an opportunity for playing with ways of arranging my main points so that they follow some kind of order or progression. Looking at this list, I can begin to consider how similar items on the list might suggest the development of higher order categories, providing my outline with a new level of subordination. So here's an example of a subordinated outline, an outline where some elements are nested within bigger elements. For example, there are 4 kinds of cheese that I'm going to consider: soft cheese, firm cheese, hard cheese, and exotic cheese. And for each of those categories, I have a specific example of a kind of cheese that fits into that category. The soft cheeses are brie and camembert. The firm cheeses are cheddar and Swiss. The hard cheese I want to discuss is Parmesan. And then I have an exotic cheese that I want to talk about, cassou marzu. This outline provides a format that will make it easier for me to create a sense of progression and development as I move from paragraph to paragraph. Rather than simply bouncing around from cheese to cheese, now we are moving along a continuum from soft cheeses to hard cheeses, moving toward the strangest or most surprising kind of cheese that I learned about over the course of my research, the Sardinian maggot cheese, cassou marzu. Once I have this meta structure established, I can continue to fill out the outline, including information about the points that will be made within each of these paragraphs. For example, for each of my 6 cheeses, I might consider including information about how it tastes, its origin and history, how it's made and served, and what kinds of recipes or wines it goes well with. And so now I still have my same basic outline from the previous slide: soft, firm, hard, and exotic cheeses. But now for each individual cheese, I'm talking about 4 subcategories or subtopics: taste, origin, history, how it's made and served, and recipes. And I just repeat that basic formula for each of the cheeses, and I have a pretty detailed outline. From here, I can continue to fill in these generic talking points with specific information from my research. For example, my paragraph about brie was going to involve these generic talking points: A, taste; B, origin and history; C, how it's made and served; and D, recipes. But as I continue to elaborate my outline, I can take those individual talking points and fill them in with information from my research that specifically relates to the cheese brie. For example, in the case of brie, its taste is rich and buttery with a creamy texture. Its origin and history take us back to the Seine-et-Marne region of France and involves a legend about Charlemagne first tasting brie and his ecstatic response. The section about how it's made and served will discuss the process for making brie, which involves adding rennet to raw milk, heating it, and casting it in molds. And a specific recipe that I found that involves brie involves serving it with cashews, pears, French bread, and champagne for a delicious brie-based meal. As the outline begins to sprawl out, I might even consider dropping a few of the cheeses that I was going to write about, since it looks like I might have material for more than 4 pages. Maybe I'll get rid of Camembert and Swiss, so that I only have one cheese to discuss in each of my main categories: soft, firm, hard, and exotic. Working out an outline in this way allows me to see the entire shape of my essay before I have even written a single word. The more investment I put into the outlining process, the more confident I will be as I begin to write my individual paragraphs that they all fit into a larger whole. The cheese essay, outlined in this slide, is a very basic kind of essay, composed of a single unit that repeats itself with variations throughout the body of the essay. This modular format is effective for surveying a large amount of information in an orderly and predictable way, and it is a good fit for an essay that seeks to introduce a reader to the variety that can be found within the world of, in this case, cheese. Other kinds of thesis statements, however, lend themselves to different structural formats. Familiarizing yourself with these formats can help you to develop a master plan for the body of your essay. 1. 3 main points. One of the most common formats for academic essays is the 3 main points model. This arrangement is very similar to the modular format discussed in relation to the cheese example, but the 3 main points format limits the number of segments, typically, to 3, allowing for more development in each section. In a 6-paragraph body, for example, I can now devote 2 paragraphs to each of my main points. The most common use of the 3 main points structure is in persuasive essays, where a particular argument is supported by 3 main points. For example, here is a rough outline for an essay with the thesis: although cheese is usually thought of as a fattening comfort food, it actually possesses a wide variety of health benefits. In my research, I found 3 ways of making this argument: that cheese contains butyrate, a substance that has several surprising health benefits. For example, it boosts metabolism, it encourages good gut bacteria, it may help prevent certain cancers, and it may help protect against type 2 diabetes. I also discovered that cheese is a good source of calcium, which helps bone growth, prevents osteoporosis, and strengthens and protects teeth. And I also found that cheese has lots of protein, which helps build muscle. In an essay like this, I might consider further dividing each of these 3 sections into 2 paragraphs, one about the science and another one about specific recipes or cheeses that are particularly effective in providing these health benefits. So in the outline on the left-hand side of this slide, we see the same outline from the previous slide. The outline on the right-hand side of the slide is an elaborated version of that outline. In green, there are ideas for additional paragraphs for each of the 3 sections. The original paragraphs, we're going to talk about the science of the health benefits, and the additional paragraphs, 1b, 2b, and 3b, will talk about specific cheeses and recipes that help consumers achieve these benefits. The 3 main points formula is extremely basic. It's one of the first essay formats that students learn in elementary school, but it is also extremely practical and flexible, making it useful for writers at any skill level. 2. Problem solution. Another structural model that lends itself to persuasive essays is the problem solution model. In its essence, this is a 2-part structure. In the first half of your paper, you describe the problem, and in the second half, you propose solutions. This is the basic formula, but there is a lot of variation in how you apply it to any particular topic. For example, here is a rough outline for an essay with the thesis: consumers, industry leaders, and elected representatives need to collaborate to ensure that Parmesan cheese manufacturers do not cut their product with wood pulp, Romano cheese, and other ingredients, as has happened in several recent high-profile instances. In this outline, I'm going to spend the first section of my essay describing the problem, which involves recent lawsuits around impure Parmesan cheese, research detailing the extent of the problem, and specific risks to public health. And then in the second essay, I'm going to focus on specific solutions to this problem, that consumers can get educated and write to companies, that industry leaders can avoid cutting corners, insist on top quality ingredients, and enhance transparency, and that politicians can support a fully funded FDA and toughen laws against dishonest cheese manufacturers. This outline provides a helpful symmetry: 3 problem paragraphs and 3 solution paragraphs. Although it would also be possible to write an essay that devotes only 1 paragraph to describing the problem and that uses the rest of the body of the essay to examine possible solutions. Also, notice that the solutions section of this essay is basically a shortened version of the 3 main points structure discussed previously. This is a good example of how different formats can be mixed and matched to serve different rhetorical purposes. 3. Past, present, future. When a thesis involves examining the development of a historical or ongoing trend, or when there is a strong narrative element involved, it can be helpful to divide the body of your essay into 3 main sections: beginning, middle, and end, if you're describing a series of events that have already happened, or past, present, future, if you are describing a series of events that is ongoing. For example, another cheese thesis might contend that Swiss cheese has a rich and surprising history. Fortunately, as I learned in my research, the history of Swiss cheese can be neatly divided into 3 chapters. Its beginnings in the 14th century Emmental region of Switzerland. The middle takes us to the 19th century, where it's popularized as Swiss cheese. And the end describes its modern-day status as one of the most popular cheeses in the world, a staple ingredient of classic recipes such as chicken cordon bleu and Cuban sandwiches. Breaking down a history into 3 sections provides a clear strategy for organizing a narrative-style essay. Similarly, stories that are currently unfolding can be related with a past, present, future structure. The sample thesis, technological advancement leads to changes in the way that cheese is produced, can be discussed using a past, present, future model. The past section of my essay would describe archaeological evidence of cheesemaking in prehistoric Europe, Egypt, and China. The present section of my essay would describe the factory model of industrial-scale cheesemaking by multinational corporations. And then I might also look into the future of cheesemaking, where advances in genomics will lead to more efficient starter bacteria and specialized enzymes to influence flavor and consistency. Once I have those 3 elements in place, I can make more specific decisions about how to shape each of these subsections into a paragraph or 2 of detailed information. 4. Pros, cons, and synthesis. In any field of inquiry, there are some debates that are so fraught that they can never be neatly resolved simply by siding with one side or the other. Even in the world of cheese, such controversies exist. On the one hand, casu marzu is a traditional Sardinian delicacy. As a distinctive component of the local cuisine, the people of Sardinia naturally want to be free to eat it, produce it, and sell it as they please. On the other hand, putrid cheese possesses certain health risks, and European Union health officials have a right to protect consumers. There are legitimate arguments on both sides of this debate, so it is necessary to articulate some kind of compromise between the 2 positions. In rhetoric, a blending of 2 different points of view is called a synthesis. In this case, the synthesis suggestions would involve proposing the sale of casu marzu be permitted, but only if the health risks are clearly labeled. Maybe we might also consider the idea that casu marzu should be officially designated a traditional food, exempting it from EU health regulations. And I might also propose that scientists should continue to work on developing a hygienic form of casu marzu. In practice, this essay would break down into 5 paragraphs. 1. Arguments in favor of legal casu marzu. 2. Arguments against legal casu marzu. 3. The first synthesis suggestion, labeling. The second synthesis suggestion, traditional food designation. And the third synthesis suggestion, developing a hygienic form. This structure is an effective tool for putting 2 opposed points of view into a conversation with one another in the interest of working past conflicts and toward creative solutions. Once you have a clear plan for organizing your essay into paragraphs, you can approach each paragraph as its own mini-essay and write them one at a time. Start off by stating the essence of each main point in the form of a topic sentence, then use the rest of the paragraph to support the topic sentence. So here's a paragraph based on that fifth section of my outline about Kasu Marzu, Synthesis 3, Developing a Hygienic Form. The blue sentence at the top of the paragraph is my topic sentence, a statement of the main business of the paragraph. The black text in the middle of the paragraph is simply my own explanation of what I mean by my topic sentence, and the sentence in green at the bottom of the paragraph is a closing remark that identifies the paragraph's overall significance to my essay. The topic sentence reads, "Another solution to this conflict between Sardinian cheese eaters and European Union health officials may come from science." And then the body of this paragraph continues, "At the University of Sassari, researchers developed a hygienic method of producing Kasu Marzu. It turns out that what is unhealthy about eating maggoty cheese is not the cheese fly itself, but the pathogenic microorganisms that the flies carry with them after coming into contact with corpses and other rotting organic material. University of Sassari entomologist Dr. Andrea Lentini breeds cheese flies in a controlled environment where the cheese is the only foreign object the flies encounter throughout their entire life cycle. Lentini explains, it is very important when we want to infest the cheese to have adults that for sure haven't been contaminated." A video released as part of a campaign to encourage the EU to legalize Kasu Marzu shows the rudimentary equipment necessary to raise cheese flies in this kind of hygienic environment. The process requires little more than a screened-in cube to contain the flies. This is a method that could easily be transplanted from the university research lab into the shops of Sardinian cheesemakers with minimal disruption to traditional practices. And then I end this paragraph with a closing remark that clarifies its significance to my essay. Widespread application of Lentini's method of producing Kasu Marzu should address the concerns of both sides of the debate, but despite this innovation, Kasu Marzu retains its ambiguous legal status in the European Union. Once you have an outline prepared, these paragraphs are relatively easy to write. As the bullet points in your outline become elaborated with subordinated subpoints, and as those clusters of ideas develop into topic sentences and paragraphs, your essay will begin to take shape from the inside out.